The crowd noise filled the massive arena like thunder. Amy Brooks stood at the edge of the combat zone, her hands steady despite the weight of what was about to happen. 3 years of fighting had brought her to this moment. 3 years of proving that humans belonged among the stars with creatures that could crush steel with their bare hands. She looked up at the viewing platforms, where hundreds of alien beings watched and waited. The Drachnary section was easy to spot. Their red scales caught the arena lights and their yellow eyes burned with confidence. They had good reason to feel confident. Their champion had never lost a fight. Amy checked her combat suit one more time. The basic armor felt thin compared to what some species wore, but humans had learned to rely on speed and intelligence rather than thick skin. She touched the small communication device in her ear. "How are you feeling out there, Commander?" The voice belonged to Jake Murphy, her second in command. He sat in the small human section with the rest of their team. "Ready as I'll ever be," Amy replied quietly. She could hear the worry in Jake's voice, though he tried to hide it. Everyone knew what this fight meant for humanity. The arena floor was a circle of dark metal, 50 meters across. Weapon racks lined the walls, filled with every kind of fighting tool the galaxy had to offer. Energy weapons, projectile guns, bladed weapons, and things Amy couldn't even name. The rules were simple. Each fighter could choose any 3 weapons. The fight continued until one fighter could not continue. A deep voice echoed through the arena, speaking in the common galactic language, presenting the champion of the Drachnary Empire. Winner of 47 consecutive battles, Corvin Thulmactor. The creature that walked onto the arena floor made Amy's breath catch in her throat. Corvin stood nearly 3 meters tall, his body covered in thick red scales that looked like natural armor. His arms were as thick as tree trunks, ending in hands that could probably tear through metal. But it was his eyes that made Amy's skin crawl. They held the cold intelligence of a predator that had never known defeat. The crowd cheered as Corvin raised his massive arms. The Drachnary section roared their approval, a sound like 100 engines starting at once. Other species clapped. Politely, but Amy could see the fear in their body language. Everyone respected the Drachnary military might, even if they didn't like it. "Now presenting the human representative," the voice continued. "Lieutenant Commander Amy Brooks of the Terran Defense Force." Amy walked forward, and the arena fell almost silent. She knew what they were thinking. At average human height and build, she looked like a child next to Corvin. Her brown hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. Her green eyes showed determination. But she knew that wouldn't be enough to impress anyone here. The human section cheered as loudly as they could, but their small numbers made little impact in the massive arena. Lisa Gray, their communications officer, waved a small Earth flag. Dr. Ben Carter sat with his medical kit ready. Though everyone hoped he wouldn't need it, Amy tried not to think about what would happen if she lost. The Drachnary had made their demands clear. If their champion won, they wanted control of 3 human colony worlds. The Galactic Council had already agreed to the terms. Amy was all that stood between millions of humans and Drachnary occupation. "Fighters, choose your weapons." The announcer called. Corvin moved to the weapon racks with surprising grace for such a large creature. He selected a massive energy rifle that would have been too heavy for most humans to lift. His second choice was a vibro blade nearly as long as Amy was tall. For his third weapon, he chose something that made Amy's heart sink. It was a small device that fit in his palm, but she recognized it from her military training. A personal shield generator, capable of stopping most projectile weapons. Amy made her own choices carefully. She picked a standard plasma rifle, reliable and accurate. Her second weapon was a combat knife, simple but effective in close quarters. For her third choice, she surprised everyone by selecting a basic grappling hook launcher. The crowd murmured in confusion, but Amy had a plan. The 2 fighters moved to opposite sides of the arena. Amy could feel the weight of thousands of eyes watching her every move. In the viewing sections, she could see alien diplomats placing bets on how long she would last. Most seemed to think the fight would be over in minutes. "Let the combat begin," the announcer declared. Corvin immediately raised his energy rifle and fired. The plasma bolt streaked across the arena, but Amy was already moving. She rolled to the side using a piece of debris as cover. The blast left a smoking crater in the arena floor where she had been standing. Amy fired back, her shots precise and controlled. The plasma bolt struck Corvin's personal shield, creating brief flashes of light but doing no damage. She had expected this, but it still made her stomach tighten with worry. Corvin began walking toward her, firing steadily. His massive weapon could punch through most cover, forcing Amy to keep moving. She used every obstacle in the arena, running and diving to stay ahead of his shots. The crowd began to murmur as they watched the human's desperate flight. Amy knew she couldn't keep running forever. Her human endurance was good, but Corvin's natural armor meant he didn't have to worry about taking cover. She needed to change the game somehow. She fired her grappling hook at the arena ceiling, using it to swing across the open space. For a moment she thought she had gained an advantage. But Corvin was faster than she had expected. He spun and fired, his shot clipping her shoulder and sending her tumbling to the ground. Pain shot through Amy's body as she hit the arena floor hard. Her combat suit had absorbed most of the impact, but she could feel blood running down her arm. The crowd noise grew louder as they sensed the fight was turning. Amy forced herself to stand, switching to her combat knife as Corvin approached. She knew the blade couldn't penetrate his scales, but she had to try something. She feinted left, then dove right, trying to get behind him. But Corvin had fought too many battles to fall for such a simple trick. His massive hand caught Amy's wrist, stopping her knife thrust cold. She felt the bones in her arm creak under his grip. With casual strength, he lifted her off the ground and threw her across the arena. Amy hit the wall hard, her vision blurring from the impact. Through the ringing in her ears, she could hear Jake's voice calling her name through the communication device. She tried to answer, but her breathing was too shallow. Corvin walked toward her slowly, knowing the fight was over. He had broken her arm and possibly some ribs. Any normal human would have surrendered by now. But Amy was not normal, and she was not ready to give up. She pulled out a small device from her belt, something she had hoped not to use. It was an emergency stimulant injector, designed to keep wounded soldiers fighting for a few more minutes. The side effects were dangerous, but she was out of options. The injection hit her system like lightning. Her vision cleared, and the pain in her arm faded to a dull ache. She stood up, raising her knife one more time. The crowd fell silent, amazed that the small human was still fighting, but Corvin had tired of the game. He reached into his combat harness and pulled out a fourth weapon, something that made Amy's blood run cold. It was clearly a military-grade energy projector, far more powerful than anything allowed in the arena. The device hummed with barely contained power. Amy knew she had been betrayed. The rules clearly stated 3 weapons each, but none of the officials were calling a violation. She realized that the fix was in, that the Draknari had paid to ensure their victory. Corvin smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. He raised the illegal weapon and fired at point-blank range. The energy beam struck Amy in the chest, lifting her off her feet and hurling her backward. She hit the arena wall with a sound like breaking bones, then slumped to the ground and lay still. The arena erupted in chaos. The Draknari section celebrated their victory while other species sat in stunned silence. In the human section, Jake was already moving toward the arena floor, followed by Dr. Carter with his medical equipment. Amy Brooks, Earth's greatest warrior, lay motionless on the cold arena floor. Her body was broken, her breathing barely visible. The medical scanners showed massive internal damage. As Dr. Carter worked frantically to stabilize her, the Draknari delegation was already meeting with Galactic Council representatives to discuss their prize. 3 human worlds would soon fall under alien control, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop it. The age of human expansion in the galaxy appeared to be over before it had truly begun. The medical bay was quiet except for the steady beeping of machines. Amy Brooks lay on the treatment table, her body still and pale. Tubes and wires connected her to devices that kept her alive. Dr. Ben Carter stood over her, checking the readings on his scanner for the 20th time in 10 minutes. "This doesn't make sense," he muttered to himself. The scanner showed massive internal damage. 3 broken ribs, a collapsed lung, severe brain trauma, and internal bleeding that should have killed her within minutes. Yet somehow Amy was stable, more than stable actually. Her vital signs were improving. Jake Murphy paced the floor nearby, his hands clenched into fists. He had watched the fight from the viewing section, helpless as his commander was destroyed by an illegal weapon. The injustice of it burned in his chest like acid. "How is she, Doc?" Jake asked for the 5th time. Dr. Carter shook his head. "She should be dead, Jake. By all medical logic, she should be dead. But look at these readings." He held up the scanner. "Her cellular activity is off the charts. It's like her body is rebuilding itself from the inside out." Lisa Gray sat in the corner, her communication equipment spread across a table. She was monitoring the feeds from across the station, gathering information about what was happening in the aftermath of the fight. The news was not good. "The Draknari delegation is meeting with the council now," she reported. "They're demanding immediate transfer of New Austin, Liberty, and Hope Colony. The council representatives are saying they have no choice but to agree." Jake slammed his fist against the wall. 3 worlds, 3 million people, all because of one rigged fight. Dr. Carter looked up from his scanner, his face pale. "Jake, you need to see this. Amy's bone density is increasing. The fractures aren't just healing, they're getting stronger. And her muscle tissue is regenerating at a rate I've never seen before." "What are you saying, Doc?" "I'm saying something is happening to her that's beyond normal human biology. Look at her brain scans from an hour ago, and look at them now." Jake studied the 2 images side by side. Even with his limited medical knowledge, he could see the difference. The first scan showed severe trauma, areas of damage that should have left Amy in a permanent coma. The second scan showed a brain that looked not just healed, but enhanced. New neural pathways seemed to be forming even as they watched. Amy's eyes suddenly snapped open. Both men jumped back in surprise. Her green eyes looked different somehow, brighter and more alert than before. She sat up slowly, testing her movement. "Commander." Jake started forward, but Dr. Carter held him back. "Easy, Amy. You've been through severe trauma. You need to rest." Amy looked around the medical bay, taking in her surroundings. When she spoke, her voice was clear and strong. "How long was I unconscious?" 53 minutes, Dr. Carter replied. Checking his chronometer, Amy swung her legs off the treatment table and stood up. Dr. Carter moved to stop her, but she held up a hand. "I'm fine, Ben. Better than fine, actually." She flexed her arms and rolled her shoulders. "The pain is gone." "Everything is gone." "That's impossible. Your injuries were severe. You should be in intensive care for weeks." Amy walked to the mirror on the wall and studied her reflection. She looked the same, but she felt completely different. Every sense seemed sharper, more focused. She could hear conversations happening 3 rooms away. She could smell the fierce sweat on Jake's uniform. Most importantly, she could feel strength flowing through her muscles that she had never possessed before. "What happened after I went down?" she asked. Lisa looked up from her communication station. "The Draknari won? They're claiming their prize right now? The council is preparing transfer documents for the 3 colonies." Amy's jaw tightened. "How long do we have before the transfer is final?" "Standard procedure requires a 24-hour waiting period for any major territorial changes," Lisa replied. "But the Draknari are pushing for immediate action. They could have control by tomorrow morning." Amy walked to the viewport and looked out at the arena complex. She could see Draknari warriors celebrating in their section, drinking something that looked like liquid fire. Their victory songs echoed through the station corridors. "There's something else," Jake said quietly. "We've been monitoring communications from Earth. Word of your defeat is spreading. Some of the outer colonies are talking about surrender before the Draknari come for them too." Dr. Carter was still studying his scanner readings. "Amy, I need to understand what's happening to you." These cellular changes shouldn't be possible. Your genetic structure appears to be evolving. Amy turned away from the viewport. Evolving how? I'm seeing dormant gene sequences activating. Sequences that don't appear in normal human DNA scans. It's as if your body is unlocking potential. That was always there, hidden and waiting. Waiting for what? Near-death trauma, I think. Some kind of extreme stress that triggers the change. Dr. Carter paused, his face growing excited. Amy, I think you might be the first documented case of accelerated human evolution. Your body has adapted to survive threats that would kill a normal person. Amy absorbed this information. She could feel the truth of it in her bones. She was no longer the same person who had entered the arena an hour ago. The question was, what could she do with this change? Pete Harrison, the station's communication officer, burst into the medical bay. Commander Brooks, you need to hear. The Draknari are broadcasting a message to all human settlements. He activated a portable communication unit. Corvin's voice filled the room, speaking in accented but clear English. Humans of the weak colonies, your champion has fallen. Your military is broken. Submit now, and your deaths will be quick. Resist, and your suffering will be long. The message repeated in several languages before cutting off. Amy felt something burning in her chest that she had never experienced before. It was rage, but more than that. It was the fury of a predator that had been awakened. There's more. Pete continued. Intelligence reports show Draknari fleet movements near all 3 target colonies. They're not waiting for the Council's official transfer. They're preparing to take the worlds by force if necessary. Jake stepped forward. Commander, what are your orders? Amy was quiet for a long moment, thinking. Her new abilities were impressive. But what could one person do against an entire empire? Then she remembered something from her military training. An ancient law that few species bothered to use anymore. Lisa, I need you to research galactic combat regulations. Specifically, the right of redress. Lisa's fingers flew over her equipment. Pound it. The right of redress allows a defeated warrior to challenge their opponent again if the original fight contained violations of combat law. The challenge must be issued within 1 hour of the original defeat. Amy looked at the chronometer on the wall. How much time do I have left? 7 minutes and 30 seconds, Dr. Carter replied. That's enough time. Amy moved toward the door, but Jake blocked her path. Commander, you can't be serious. Even with whatever's happened to you, Corvin nearly killed you once already. Amy looked at her second in command and Jake stepped back. Involuntarily. There was something in her eyes that hadn't been there before, something dangerous and determined. Jake, I want you to contact the arena officials. Tell them I'm invoking the right of redress. I'm challenging Corvin again. Amy, this is insane, Dr. Carter protested. We don't know the extent of your changes. You could be stronger, but he still has that illegal weapon. Then I'll have to be smarter than him. Amy headed for the door. Lisa, I need a direct communication. Link to the arena announcer? It's time to show the galaxy that humans don't give up. As Amy left the medical bay, she could feel the changes continuing in her body. Her reflexes were faster, her strength was increasing, and most importantly, her mind was processing information at a speed she had never experienced. She understood now what had happened to her. The near-death experience had unlocked something that evolution had hidden in human DNA. For thousands of years, the question was whether one evolved human could stand against the greatest warrior the galaxy had ever known. In 6 minutes, she would find out. Behind her, Jake was already calling the arena officials. Dr. Carter was packing emergency medical supplies. Lisa was preparing to broadcast Amy's challenge to every human settlement in the galaxy. The impossible was about to become reality. Amy Brooks was going back into the arena, and this time she would not fall. The arena fell completely silent as Amy Brooks walked through the entrance. Every alien being in the massive viewing section stopped talking at once. The silence was so complete that Amy could hear her own footsteps echoing off the metal floor. She moved with a confidence that surprised even herself. Each step felt perfectly balanced, as if her body knew exactly where to place her feet for maximum efficiency. Her green eyes swept across the crowd, taking in details she had never noticed before. She could see the surprise on alien faces, the confusion in their body language. In the Draknari section, Corvin Thulmactor stood among his supporters, his yellow eyes wide with shock. He had watched his energy weapon tear through Amy's body less than an hour ago. By all logic, she should still be unconscious in the medical bay if she was alive at all. "This is impossible," Corvin spoke in his native language to the Draknari official beside him. Amy heard every word clearly, though she was 50 meters away. Somehow, her hearing had become sensitive enough to pick up conversations across the arena. The arena announcer seemed as confused as everyone else. His voice cracked slightly as he spoke into the communication system. "Ladies and gentlemen, it appears that the human representative has returned to invoke the right of redress." A buzz of conversation started in the viewing sections. Many species had forgotten that such an ancient law even existed. The right of redress was rarely used because most warriors who lost badly enough to need it were usually too injured to fight again. Jake Murphy sat in the human section, his hands gripping the rail in front of him. Dr. Carter sat beside him with his medical equipment ready. Lisa Gray had her communication gear set to broadcast Amy's challenge to every human settlement in the galaxy. They all watched Amy with a mixture of hope and terror. Amy walked to the center of the arena and looked up at the official viewing box where the arena judges sat. "I formally request the right of redress," she called out in a voice that carried clearly through the massive space. "The previous combat contained violations of established law. I demand a fair rematch." The head judge, a tall being from the Zolonian Federation, consulted his datapad. "The right of redress requires evidence of rule violations." "What is your claim?" Amy pointed at Corvin. "My opponent used a fourth weapon in violation of the 3-weapon limit. The energy projector he used in the final attack was not among his declared weapons." Murmurs of agreement came from several viewing sections. Many aliens had noticed the violation but had chosen to stay quiet. Now that Amy had formally challenged it, they could not ignore the rules. The judge looked toward the Draknari section. "Champion Corvin, how do you respond to this accusation?" Corvin climbed down to the arena floor, his massive form making the metal structure shake with each step. When he reached the center, he stood nearly twice Amy's height. His red scales gleamed under the arena lights. "The human is desperate," Corvin said, his voice booming through the arena. "She knows she was defeated fairly. This is merely an attempt to delay the inevitable transfer of her people's worlds." Amy stepped closer to Corvin, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to look at his face. "Then you won't mind if the judges review the fight recordings? If you used only 3 weapons, the evidence will support you." The head judge nodded to his assistants. Within moments, a holographic display appeared above the arena, showing the final moments of their first fight. The recording clearly showed Corvin pulling the energy projector from his combat harness, a weapon that had not been among his 3 declared choices. The crowd erupted in angry shouts. Even species that disliked humans could see that the rules had been broken. The Draknari section remained stubbornly quiet, but their body language showed embarrassment. "The evidence is clear," the head judge announced. "A rule violation occurred. The right of redress is granted. However, the human warrior must be medically cleared for combat." Dr. Carter stood up in the human section. "I certify that Commander Brooks is fit for combat," he called out. He didn't mention the impossible changes he had documented, but his medical credentials were respected throughout the galaxy. Amy looked up at Corvin, who was staring down at her with a mixture of anger and confusion. "So, champion, are you ready for a fair fight this time?" Corvin's lips pulled back in a snarl, showing his sharp teeth. "I will crush you even more thoroughly than before, little human. This time, I will make sure you do not get back up." The fighters moved to opposite sides of the arena to select their weapons. Amy could feel thousands of eyes watching her every move, but now the attention felt different. Instead of pity and dismissal, she sensed curiosity and something that might have been hope. Amy chose the same weapons as before, a plasma rifle, a combat knife, and a grappling hook launcher. The crowd murmured in surprise. Most had expected her to choose more powerful weapons after seeing what Corvin could do. Corvin selected his massive energy rifle and vibroblade again. For his third weapon, he chose the personal shield generator, the same combination that had served him in 47 victories. He was confident that his previous success was due to superior skill, not the illegal weapon he had used at the end. The two fighters took their positions. Amy could feel the changes in her body more clearly now. Her muscles felt like coiled springs, ready to release energy she had never possessed before. Her vision was so sharp she could see individual scales on Corvin's hide. Most importantly, her mind was processing information at incredible speed, calculating angles and distances with mathematical precision. "Let the combat begin," the announcer declared. Corvin raised his energy rifle and fired, just as he had in their first fight. But this time Amy was ready. She moved before he pulled the trigger, her enhanced reflexes allowing her to predict his actions. The plasma bolt passed through empty air as Amy rolled to a new position. Amy fired back, her shots precise and controlled. But instead of aiming at Corvin's shield, she targeted the weapon racks on the arena walls. Her plasma bolts destroyed several racks, sending debris flying across the arena floor. The crowd didn't understand her strategy yet, but Amy was all ready. 3 moves ahead, Corvin advanced, firing steadily as he had before. But Amy was no longer the same fighter who had fled desperately around the arena. She moved with inhuman grace, staying ahead of his shots while gradually herding him toward the center of the arena. "She's toying with him," Jake whispered to Dr. Carter. "Look at how she's moving." Dr. Carter watched in amazement as Amy performed maneuvers that should have been physically impossible. She leaped over obstacles that were taller than she was, changed direction in midair, and landed without making a sound. Her movements were so fluid they seemed to defy gravity. Amy fired her grappling hook at the arena ceiling and swung across the open space, just as she had tried before. But this time, when Corvin fired at her, she did something that made the entire crowd gasp. She caught his plasma bolt with her bare hand, somehow absorbing the energy without taking damage. Corvin stopped firing, his yellow eyes wide with shock. "What are you?" he demanded. Amy landed gracefully on the arena floor and smiled. "I'm what humans become when you push us too far." She dropped her plasma rifle and walked toward Corvin empty-handed. The massive Draknari warrior raised his weapon and fired again, but Amy moved faster than the eye could follow. She appeared beside Corvin before the plasma bolt had traveled. Halfway across the arena, Amy grabbed Corvin's energy rifle and crushed it with her bare hands. The weapon, designed to withstand military combat, crumpled like paper in her grip. Sparks flew as the power cells discharged harmlessly into the air. Corvin swung his vibroblade at Amy's head, but she ducked under the strike and grabbed his wrist. The crowd heard the sound of scales cracking as Amy's grip tightened. Corvin, who had never shown pain in any of his previous fights, cried out as his bones began to bend. "Yield," Amy said quietly, her voice somehow carrying to every corner of the arena. Corvin tried to activate his personal shield, but Amy moved faster than his reflexes could follow. She grabbed the shield generator and crushed it just as she had destroyed his rifle. The device sparked and died in her hand. Amy stepped back and looked up at Corvin, who was cradling his injured wrist. "I could break every bone in your body before you could blink," she said, "but I won't. You fought with honor until you cheated at the end. I respect that." She walked to where Corvin had dropped his vibroblade and picked it up. The weapon was nearly as long as she was tall, but she held it easily in one hand. With a quick motion, she drove the blade into the arena floor, burying it halfway to the hilt. "The fight is over," Amy announced to the crowd. "I am victorious." The arena exploded in noise as thousands of aliens cheered, roared, or chittered their approval. In the human section, Jake and Lisa were hugging each other while Dr. Carter stared at his medical scanner in disbelief. Corvin looked down at Amy with something like respect in his yellow eyes. How? He asked simply. Amy helped him to his feet, supporting his injured arm. Because sometimes when you knock someone down, you discover they can get back up stronger than before, the head judge's voice echoed through the arena. By right of combat, Amy Brooks of the human species is declared the victor. All territorial claims by the Draknari Empire are hereby nullified. The Draknari delegation sat in stunned silence as Amy's words echoed through the arena. Their champion lay defeated, and now this small human was claiming the right to their empire's battle banner. The ancient law was clear, but no one had invoked it in over 300 years. General Vex Thularin, the highest-ranking Draknari military officer present, stood slowly from his seat. His red scales were darker than Corvin's, marked with scars from countless battles. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of absolute authority. The human speaks of old laws, General Thularin said. Laws that were made when the galaxy was young and warriors fought with honor above all else. Amy looked up at the viewing section where the Draknari sat. Are you saying your people no longer follow the old laws? That Draknari honor means nothing? The question hit the delegation like a physical blow. Honor was the foundation of Draknari society. To suggest they had abandoned it was one of the worst insults possible. General Thularin's yellow eyes blazed with anger, but he could not deny the law without destroying his people's reputation. The law stands, he said finally. But understand what you ask, human. To claim our banner means to accept responsibility for the entire Draknari military. Every warrior, every ship, every world under our protection becomes your burden to bear. Nodded. I understand completely. The head judge consulted his data files once again. The law of banner rights is indeed valid. If the human warrior claims victory over the Draknari champion, she may request their battle standard as tribute. However, this also means she assumes command of all Draknari military forces. A ripple of excitement went through the viewing sections. Aliens who had never seen humans as anything more than a minor species were suddenly reassessing everything they thought they knew. If Amy took command of the Draknari Empire's military, humans would instantly become the most powerful force in the galaxy. Jake Murphy gripped the rail in front of him so hard his knuckles turned white. She's going to do it, he whispered to Dr. Carter. She's actually going to claim their entire military. Dr. Carter was still staring at his medical scanner. Jake, her cellular activity is still increasing. Whatever happened to her, it's not finished yet. She's still evolving. In the arena, Amy helped Corvin to his feet. The massive warrior looked down at her with a mixture of respect and confusion. You could have killed me, he said quietly. Why did you show mercy? Because killing you wouldn't prove anything except that I could kill, Amy replied. Showing mercy proves that I can choose not to. That choice is what makes someone worthy of command. Corvin studied Amy's face for a long moment. Then, to everyone's surprise, he knelt on one knee before her. I have fought for 20 years, he said in a voice that carried throughout the arena. I have defeated warriors from every corner of the galaxy. But I have never met anyone who combines strength with wisdom as you have shown today. I accept your victory. The crowd erupted in cheers. Even species that had feared the Draknari for decades were impressed by Corvin's graceful acceptance of defeat. It was a display of honor that reminded everyone why the warrior culture had once been respected throughout the galaxy. General Thularin descended from the viewing section, followed by 12 other high-ranking Draknari officers. They moved in formation, their heavy footsteps creating a rhythmic thunder on the arena floor. When they reached Amy, they formed a semicircle around her. Human warrior, General Thularin said formally, you have defeated our champion in fair combat. By the ancient laws, you have earned the right to claim our battle banner. Do you accept the responsibility that comes with this honor? Amy looked around at the assembled Draknari officers. Each one was larger and more heavily armed than she was, yet they were all looking at her with something approaching respect. She thought about the 3 human colonies that had almost been lost, about the millions of people who depended on her choice. "I accept," she said clearly. General Fullerin nodded and signaled to one of his officers. The Draknari lieutenant brought forward a long pole topped with a banner that seemed to glow with its own inner light. The fabric was deep red, marked with symbols that told the story of every major Draknari victory over the past 3 centuries. "This is the banner of conquest," General Fullerin explained. "It has flown over 47 worlds that we have claimed. In battle, no enemy has ever captured it. No ally has ever been trusted to carry it. You would be the first non-Draknari to hold this standard." Amy reached out and grasped the banner pole. The moment her fingers touched the metal, she felt a surge of energy that seemed to connect her to every Draknari warrior in the galaxy. She could sense their surprise, their uncertainty, and underneath it all, their growing respect. She lifted the banner high above her head. The crowd watched in absolute silence as the symbol of Draknari military might was raised by human hands. The red fabric caught the arena lights and seemed to burn like fire against the metal ceiling. "I accept command of the Draknari military," Amy announced, her voice carrying to every corner of the arena. "But I do not accept the old ways of conquest and domination. This banner will no longer represent the taking of worlds. From this day forward, it will represent the protection of all free peoples." The viewing sections exploded in discussion. Some aliens cheered, excited by the prospect of Draknari power being used for protection rather than conquest. Others seemed worried about what this change might mean for the balance of galactic politics. Amy turned to address the entire arena. "For too long, the galaxy has been divided by fear and mistrust. Species fight over resources and territory while greater threats gather in the dark spaces between stars. I propose a new way forward." She gestured to the various viewing sections. "Each species here has something valuable to contribute. The Draknari have military strength. Humans have adaptability and determination. The Zelenians have advanced technology. The Cortani have wisdom born from centuries of peaceful development. Together, we could build something greater than any of our individual empires." General Fullerin stepped forward. "What exactly are you proposing, human commander?" Amy lowered the banner and planted its base firmly on the arena floor. "I propose we reorganize the Galactic Defense Coalition, not as a loose alliance of suspicious neighbors, but as a true unified force. Every species contributes what they do best. Every world is protected equally." She looked up at the Draknari general. "Your people are warriors. I'm not asking you to stop being warriors. I'm asking you to become protectors instead of conquerors." Corvin, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. "What you suggest has never been tried. The Draknari have conquered for 1,000 years. Our entire culture is built on military dominance." Amy nodded. "I understand that. But your culture is also built on honor and strength. There is more honor in protecting the weak than in crushing them. There is more strength in building alliances than in ruling through fear." She turned to address the crowd again. "I'm not demanding that anyone follow this path. I'm offering it as a choice. Any species that wants to join this new coalition will be welcome. Those who prefer the old ways can continue as they always have." Dr. Carter was frantically taking notes on his datapad. "This is unprecedented," he muttered to Jake. "She's not just claiming military command. She's proposing to restructure galactic civilization." Lisa Gray looked up from her communication equipment. "Commander Brooks's speech is being broadcast to every human settlement, but it's also being picked up by alien communication networks across the galaxy. Everyone is hearing this." In the arena, aliens from different species were beginning to speak among themselves. Amy could see fear in some faces, but also hope in others. She knew that changing the galaxy would not be easy, but she also knew that the old ways had led only to endless conflict. General Fullerin conferred quietly with his officers for several minutes. Finally, he turned back to Amy. "The Draknari military is yours to command," he said formally. "But understand that our loyalty must be earned through action, not just words." Amy smiled. "I wouldn't expect anything less from warriors of your reputation." She raised the banner again, this time joined by Corvin and General Thularin. The three figures standing together, human and Draknari, united under the same standard, created an image that would be remembered throughout galactic history. The old age of conquest is over, Amy declared. The new age of protection begins now. As the crowd erupted in cheers and arguments, as alien delegations rushed to contact their home governments, as the galaxy itself seemed to shift on its foundations, Amy felt the weight of what she had accomplished. She had not just saved 3 human colonies. She had potentially changed the course of galactic civilization, but she also knew that the real work was just beginning. 6 months had passed since Amy Brooks claimed the Draknari banner in the arena. The massive observation deck of Meridian Base looked out over a site that would have been impossible to imagine before that day. Ships from dozens of different species flew in perfect formation, their crews working together as if they had trained for years instead of months. Amy stood at the center of the observation deck, watching the daily patrol exercises. The Draknari battle banner hung beside the flags of 37 different species, each one representing a world that had joined the new Galactic Protection Coalition. The old Defense Coalition had been dissolved, replaced by something that actually lived up to its name. Captain Jake Murphy approached with a datapad in his hands. His uniform now bore the insignia of the Coalition's Human Command Division, a rank that would have been unthinkable when humans were considered a minor species. "The morning reports, Commander," Jake said, handing her the pad. "All patrol routes are clear, no conflicts in any of our protected sectors." Amy reviewed the information quickly. Her enhanced mental abilities allowed her to process complex data in seconds. What about the recruitment numbers? Still growing. We had 12 new applicants yesterday, including 3 Cortani science vessels. And a full Zalonian engineering squadron? Jake paused. General Thularin wants to meet with you about the new training protocols. Amy nodded. The relationship with the Draknari had not been easy at first. Many of their warriors had struggled with the idea of protection instead of conquest. But General Thularin had proven to be an excellent ally, helping to reshape Draknari. Military culture from the inside. Dr. Ben Carter emerged from the medical research section, his face bright with excitement. Over the past 6 months, he had become the galaxy's leading expert on human evolutionary potential. His research had attracted scientists from every major species. "Amy, you need to see the latest test results," Dr. Carter said, practically bouncing with enthusiasm. "We've identified the genetic markers that triggered your transformation. More importantly, we found a way to activate them safely." Amy turned away from the viewport. "Safely? No more near-death experiences required. We can trigger the evolutionary changes through controlled stress simulation. The process takes longer, but it's completely safe." Dr. Carter held up his datapad. "We've already had 50 volunteers from the human colonies complete the process successfully." 50 new enhanced humans, Jake said thoughtfully. "That could change everything." Amy frowned. "Only if we're careful about how we use this knowledge. Enhanced abilities are tools, not weapons. Every volunteer needs to understand that." Lisa Gray called out from the communication station she had set up on the observation deck. "Commander, incoming priority message from the Helix sector. It's urgent." Amy walked over to Lisa's station. The young woman had become the Coalition's Chief Communications Officer, coordinating messages between hundreds of worlds. Her equipment now included technology donated by a dozen different species, creating the most advanced communication network in galactic history. "What's the situation?" Amy asked. Lisa's face was tense as she read the incoming data. "Pirates are attacking the Ferendan colony. It's a small agricultural world, mostly civilian population. Their local defense force is overwhelmed." Amy immediately switched into command mode. "How far away are we?" 18 hours at maximum speed with our fastest ships. Too long." Amy turned to Jake. "Get me General Thularin and Admiral Martinez from the human fleet. We need to mobilize immediately." Within minutes, the observation deck had transformed into a command center. General Thularin arrived with 3 of his senior officers, their red scales gleaming under the station lights. Admiral Maria Martinez represented the human fleet, while commanders from 6 other species joined the discussion via communication link. "The situation is clear," Amy said, projecting a holographic map of the Helix sector. "Ferendon colony is under attack by what appears to be a coordinated pirate fleet. Intelligence suggests at least 20 ships, possibly more." General Fullerin studied the tactical display. "The pirates are using hit-and-run tactics. They strike the colony's infrastructure and then retreat before local forces can respond. Classic raiding strategy," Admiral Martinez nodded. "Our nearest patrol squadron is 14 hours away, but we have a problem. Ferendon colony isn't officially part of the coalition yet. Their government has been hesitant to join." Amy looked around at the assembled commanders. "Does that matter? Are we only going to protect worlds that have signed our treaties?" The question hung in the air for a moment. This was exactly the kind of situation that defined what the coalition really stood for. Commander Vilas of the Cortani spoke through the communication link. "Our philosophy has always been to help those in need, regardless of political alignment. The Cortani fleet will support whatever action you decide." General Fullerin crossed his massive arms. "The Draknari do not abandon those who cannot defend themselves. Honor demands that we respond." One by one, the other commanders voiced their agreement. Amy felt a surge of pride as she realized that the coalition's values had taken hold across multiple species. "Then we respond," Amy declared. "General Fullerin, I want your fastest squadron to depart immediately. Admiral Martinez follow with the main human fleet. I'll take a small strike force ahead to assess the situation." Dr. Carter stepped forward. "Amy, you're not going into combat alone again, are you?" Amy smiled at the concern in his voice. "Not alone, but I want to scout the situation before we commit our main forces. Sometimes a small, fast response can accomplish more than a large fleet." Within an hour, Amy was aboard the coalition cruiser Swift Justice with a hand-picked crew of enhanced humans and Draknari volunteers. The ship was one of the new hybrid designs, combining human innovation with Draknari engineering and powered by Zalonian energy systems. The journey to Ferendon colony took 16 hours, 2 hours faster than anyone had thought possible. Amy spent the time studying intelligence reports and coordinating with the relief fleet following behind them. When they arrived at Ferendon, the situation was worse than expected. The colony's main city was burning and civilian transport ships were fleeing the planet under pirate fire. The local defense force had been reduced to 3 functional ships hiding behind the planet's largest moon. 23 pirate vessels confirmed, reported Lieutenant Don Rodriguez from the sensor station. They're organized into 3 attack groups, hitting different targets simultaneously. Amy studied the tactical display. The pirates were using professional military tactics, not the random violence usually associated with raiders. "This isn't opportunistic piracy. Someone organized this attack." She opened a communication channel to the pirate fleet. "Attention pirate vessels. This is Commander Amy Brooks of the Galactic Protection Coalition. You are attacking civilians under our protection. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." The response came quickly, broadcast on an open channel so everyone could hear. "Human Commander, your reputation precedes you, but you have brought only 1 ship against our fleet. Surrender now, and we will allow you to evacuate the survivors." Amy smiled grimly. "You're right, I only brought 1 ship, but sometimes that's all you need." The Swift Justice moved toward the pirate fleet with a speed that caught them off guard. Amy had learned to use her enhanced abilities to coordinate perfectly with the ship's systems, making the vessel respond as if it were an extension of her own body. The first pirate ship fired a full spread of missiles at them. Amy's enhanced reflexes allowed her to calculate their trajectory instantly. "Hard to starboard, full power to forward shields," she ordered. The Swift Justice danced between the incoming missiles like a fighter craft instead of a cruiser. Return fire from the coalition ship was devastatingly accurate, disabling the lead pirate vessel with 3 precise shots. "Impossible," came the pirate commander's voice over the communication channel. No ship can maneuver like that. Amy responded by targeting the pirate fleet's command ship. Her enhanced abilities let her process the tactical situation faster than any computer, finding weaknesses in their formation that no normal human could have spotted. Within 30 minutes, half the pirate fleet was disabled or destroyed. The remaining ships began to retreat, but Amy wasn't finished with them yet. "This is your final warning," she broadcast to the fleeing pirates. "Any ship that attacks civilians in Coalition space will face the same fate. Spread the word." As the last pirate vessel jumped to hyperspace, Amy received a communication from the surface of Ferendon Colony. Governor Alan Foster appeared on the main screen, his face streaked with smoke but showing obvious relief. "Commander Brooks, we cannot thank you enough. Our colony would have been destroyed without your intervention." Amy nodded. "Protecting innocent people is what we do, Governor. No thanks necessary." "Actually, there is something we need to discuss," Governor Foster continued. "Our Colonial Council has been debating whether to join your coalition. Today, that debate is over. Ferendon Colony formally requests membership in the Galactic Protection Coalition. By the time the main coalition fleet arrived, the crisis was over and a new member world had been added to their alliance." Amy stood on the bridge of the Swift Justice.